guys, welcome to this week's craft video. Today we are going to be talking about, this week we're going to be talking about fairy tales from America because on Saturday it's 4th of July. So let's talk about some American fairy tales and fables. So this week for our craft we're going to be doing our craft based off of Johnny Appleseed. So Johnny Appleseed was actually a real person. Did you guys know that? When we were settling the frontier, he went around and he planted apple seeds. So all the frontiersmen and women, they could at least have apples. So if they couldn't find any food, they at least had some apples. And he was a really cool guy. He was kind of eccentric, but it just added to his character. So today we're going to be making paper apple sun catchers. So we have our apple cutout, we have a coffee filter, we have a newspaper. This is just to keep your table safe because this one gets a little bit messy. You're going to need some scissors, some markers. I have a green marker and a red marker, and you're going to need some glue. Okay. And if you want to read Johnny Appleseed, there are tons of versions out there. We have some at the library, and there's also ones on Hoopla and on the internet. So if you would like to read it, there are plenty of resources for that. Okay, you'll also need a spray bottle. If you don't have a spray bottle, don't worry. You can drop water on your coffee filter. You can use like the mist from your sink. There's lots of different ways to do it. I'm going to use a spray bottle because it's a little bit easier. Okay, so first things first, let's go ahead and color our coffee filters. So make sure you color it on top of your newspaper because this is very thin, as you can see. You can see behind it. So we're going to put it on top of our newspaper, and we're going to color it just however we want. This is going to go inside of this apple cutout. So if you want to make it like some apple colors, you can. If you want to have like pinks and purples or blues, go for it. It's your apple. You can do whatever you want with it. I'm just going to give mine some nice red squiggles. Okay, so don't worry about being too precise on your coloring. We're going to spray it with water. It's going to give a really cool watercolor effect. So don't worry about being too precise on it. Okay. Give it a little bit more red. Alrighty, so here is mine. Go. This is my pattern that we're doing today. As you can see, it's not that artistic, but it doesn't matter because we will be spraying this with water. So go ahead and make your cute little pattern. And then next you're going to take your spray bottle or some water droplets, whatever you want to do, and you're going to give it a nice healthy spray. And again, make sure you do this on top of your newspaper. Okay, so make sure you don't get it too wet because it'll just take longer to dry, but as you can see, mine's already gained that cool watercolor effect. Okay, so this is going to take quite a little bit to dry, so what we're going to do is I'm actually going to move a little bit, there we go. So what we're going to do now is while we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to take our apple cutout, and then take some scissors, and we're going to poke a hole kind of in the middle. So kids, you might have your parents do this. I don't want you to cut yourself. Just poke a hole through the middle. There we go. And then you're just going to cut a rough apple shape out of there. Okay, or any design you want. Again, this is your craft. It doesn't matter what shape you decide to do or what shape it ends up being. Okay, so make sure you leave plenty of room around the edges so that you can color your little apple. Okay, so we're going to cut out all the parts that got a little bit crinkly when we cut through. Okay. Alright, so here's our rough apple shape. If you want to go ahead and clean up your edges, you can see mine are a little bit rough there. So I'm just going to go through and we're going to clean it up. Okay. Maybe make it a little bit more even. And again, you have plenty of time to decide what shape you want your outside to be, because it's going to take a little bit for your coffee filter to dry. Okay, so I'm just going to do the classic apple shape. I think it looks really cool to have like an apple inside of an apple. But if you want to do like a heart or a circle, doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. Okay, so I cleaned mine up a little bit. As you can see, the edges are a little bit nicer. We have a rough shape in here. Alrighty, so next what we're gonna do, so this is gonna take quite a while to dry, so let's go ahead and color this apple. Again, I'm just going to use my green and my red. We're just gonna color our apple. So when this is done, you can hang this up in your window and the sun will catch the light from this. It'll make some really pretty colors. So you can do that if you want, or if you want, you can just put it on your fridge or something. They look good either way. Alrighty, so we have our red apple now. You can color the stem as well if you want. Here he is. So, do you guys want to hear some about Johnny Appleseed? So Johnny Appleseed, he was based off of a real person. His name is John Chapman. And he lived around the 1800s. And like I said, he planted apple trees around the frontier. And he traveled all around the US and the West to try to plant these apple trees. So all he brought with him when he left his home in the Northeast is he just took with him some clothes, his apple seeds, and a pot that he put on his head as a hat. And what he used the pot for was he used it to cook, he used it to protect his head against the sun, to store his apple seeds, to store his food. So he would just put the food and apple seeds on his head and cover up the hat. He was a pretty unique guy. What he would do is he would just spend all of his days walking and spreading apple seeds. And then when he would meet people on the frontier, they would take him in, they'd give him new clothes, he'd give him some apple seeds, and then he'd just go on his way. I don't believe he wore any shoes. I'm pretty sure that he walked barefoot. He was great, and that's why there's so many apple trees in the US, is because of Johnny Appleseed. Some people think he's just a legend, but he was a real guy, and he was really cool. So if you guys want to eat an apple after this in memory of him, I'm sure he would appreciate that. Okay, so our apple is nice in color. Just giving some touch-ups here. Okay, so here is our finished colored apple. So if we look at our coffee filter, it's still pretty damp. But you can already see the watercolor setting in. And let me show you the newspaper, because this is why we put the newspaper under it, is because this would stain your table, and we don't want that. So he's still pretty wet. So what we're going to do is we're going to give him some time to dry. When he's dry, you'll know he won't be so floppy, and it shouldn't stain your hands like when you touch it. See? Okay, so after that's done, I'll show you guys how we're going to combine these two. Alright, so we'll see you in just a couple minutes. Alright, so we've waited about 10 to 15 minutes for our coffee filter to dry. Now you can see it's kind of crinkly. It doesn't stain your hands when you touch it, and it just feels pretty firm. Better than it did before. So now what we're going to do is we're going to combine our two elements here. So what you're going to do is put your apple on top of your coffee filter to see just how big this thing is. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue this part of our apple. So we're going to glue all back here. Okay, don't glue this part up here, just the apple part. Okay, so I'm going to do it on top of my newspaper so I don't get glue on my table. so we're just going to give a nice, healthy amount of glue. We don't want our coffee filter to fall out. Okay. Alright, be pretty careful with this because you don't want to rip your apple. But it's pretty thin as well, since we did cut the middle out of it, and because it has marker on it. So just be a little bit careful. Okay, so next what you're going to do is you're going to take your coffee filter and you're going to place it over your glue. Okay, and make sure it's the way that you want it to be facing. So place it face down on your apple. Just so that, smooth it out, make sure it's sticking on there good. Okay, and this is what it should look like by now. As you can see, this is a little bit big, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut the excess coffee filter off. Be a little bit careful, make sure you don't cut your apple too much. Parents, you might help out just a little bit with this part. Okay, so we're just going to cut around so you don't have all of that extra. And if you want to leave like a little bit around, that's okay too. Whatever you want to do. Okay. And since it is a coffee filter, it's not too sturdy, so make sure you're keeping a good hand on the rest of it. Okay, so what we can do here, there we go. Alrighty, so now as you can see, it's starting to look more like a sun catcher than it did before. Go, here's our nice little apple. And that's pretty much it. If you want to cut a hole up here or punch a hole up here, run some string through it and hang it up in your door, you can. It'll catch plenty of sun. It'll look super cool. But that is all for our craft today. Thank you so much for doing this craft with me. I hope you guys had fun, and we will see you next week. Thank you. Bye.